know it's been a while, and I know I haven't made a video in a while, and I'm not going to talk about that. At least not yet. Because the truth is nobody wants to hear somebody make a bunch of excuses about how sad they are. But that's what this whole video is going to be. So if you don't like that, I would click away. Content warning: if you are dealing with mental health issues and you don't want to listen to somebody talk about really depressing topics for 10 minutes, then there's plenty of other videos for you. I've wanted to create for a while, but I had nothing to say. I was not gonna just come on here and ramble, although that is kind of what I always did. But I wanted to wait until I felt like I was ready. Let's face it, we're kind of a mess. Not that anyone should feel ashamed of it, not that any one person is responsible for the trans community, but I think that dealing with discrimination on a daily basis makes the trans community online a lot more hyper vigilant. Like, how many times have you seen blank trans creators start trending on Twitter because maybe, let's say, a bad take? We all remember when ContraPoints got canceled. That's why I am not going to point out why I'm so disillusioned with the community by naming names or anything like that, but I am just so sick of the fighting. I'm just so sick of the amount of people who gatekeep what it is to be trans, say certain people aren't valid. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of how much negativity there is online. And the older I get, the more I see, and maybe it's just the algorithm realizing that that's what gets people to click, but I'm sick of it. And social media is a cesspool. It is. It just is. Because the internet is a breeding ground for exploiting mental health. And this video might seem like me exploiting my mental health for a video topic. And I guess it kind of is. I wanted somebody to say what I've been feeling. And not that nobody has, but I am not okay. Even after uninstalling Facebook, logging out of it on my phone, not touching it in years, Facebook was so desperate to get controversy clicks from me that it started texting me every time my family members started sharing anti-vax theories, just because they knew that it would make me angry, just because it would make me engage. And I think that's part of why it is so dangerous to be on social media when you're struggling with your mental health, because it reinforces chaos, it reinforces negativity. And I'm not the first person to say it, and I'm certainly not going to be the last, because I don't think it's going to get any better. Even if people start being their authentic selves online, there will be as many people being authentically awful, and that's just the way it is. So do you give in and just accept that everything sucks? Because that's what I did for a while. But honestly, that's not working for me anymore. And I think part of the reason is that my depression is being managed better. Finding the right antidepressant is the reason why I was able to pull myself out of my catatonic state. And the truth is that I'm making this video, but that doesn't mean that I don't still feel the way I did. I'm healing, I'm feeling better every day, but I can't tell you how many people in my life I miss, but I just don't have it in me to reach out to them. I mean, there was a time when I truly closed myself off from the entire world because it was the only way I could cope. And I still am in that place. I mean, so many of my childhood friends I wish I could talk to today, and I wish I could message them and act like I'm okay, but I've been so in my own head that I can't bring anyone else into it. There's a truly harmful movement on the internet that's focused on all natural and the idea that medicine is inherently bad. And I mean, I know that not everybody agrees with it. I'm sure that I don't have many subscribers that are going to tell me that I've turned into a 5G drone because I have a vaccine, but there is a large portion of the internet that makes people feel bad when they admit they need medication. I already take medication for my hormone replacement therapy. I don't know why it felt different, but I felt like if I accepted that I needed to be on an antidepressant, that I couldn't feel good on my own. Admitting you need help is not weak. admitting you need help is the strongest thing you can do. I'm not going to go into a whole anti-vax monologue because I could talk about that forever, but this online movement really is, in my opinion, harmful, not just for vaccine misinformation, not just for antidepressants, but people who refuse medical treatment while giving birth. They want to do everything all natural because natural is better. But natural is why we had so many babies die in childbirth throughout history. Natural is why people died to polio. And I am living an unnatural life. And I can accept that. And I hope that other people can too. Because the truth is we're destroying nature. And it's not getting better. No amount of me recycling or riding my bike is going to change the fact that gallons and gallons of oil just spilled into the Pacific Ocean not a week ago. And I can't do anything about that. And that's why I've been so bad. I've been so depressed. And you know, I don't think studying environmental science has been helping, because that is depressing. And I remember my mom told me the story of when she went on antidepressants. One day she felt them kick in, and it was like she was seeing the world in color again. I know a lot of people whose mental health is failing them, and that's nothing against them. It's totally normal to struggle. But what's failing them ultimately is their inability to accept that they need help, or their inability to listen to the people who want to give them help. And I don't want to be like that. And as soon as I stopped being like that, I was able to heal. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I wanted to, I guess, share where I've been, even though it's a drag, even though, let's face it, it's nothing new. I'm sad. We all are sweaty. But you know what? For the first time, I am not getting more depressed each day, and I'm happy about that. I don't have a lot of reason to be depressed, but that's the thing. It's not reasonable. It's not logical. In my case, it's a biochemical imbalance in my brain. And that's why I needed to be medicated. And if there's one takeaway from this, it's not that I want you to go out there and take a magic pill, because that doesn't exist. It's not going to fix everything. It hasn't for me. But you need to take care of your health. And sometimes a trans person needs estrogen in order to be who they are. Well, they don't, actually. That's a whole other thing. You don't need hormones. You don't need any of that. But I felt like I wanted hormone replacement therapy because it helped me reflect who I am on the inside. And who I am on the inside, I don't think is that depressed person who can't get out of bed. And I don't want that to be me. And I don't want that to be anybody. My channel always started as just an online transition vlog, basically. And I am really glad that I did it, but I also felt a lot of shame because of how I just up and left one day. I think that it's important to recognize that the internet is a really strange place, and it becomes a stranger place every day. And not to say that we are the most discriminated, because that's far from the truth. The internet discriminates against all shapes and sizes, but it's a scary place to be trans. And on a public platform like YouTube, there are a lot of trans creators that come and go, and there are a lot of creators that come and go, but trans people, I do think, get scrutinized on a very, very deep level, especially on a platform like this, and I don't think that's good for anybody's mental health. The last time I uploaded a video was around 2016, and I mean, there were a lot of things that happened in 2016, but the main thing that I noticed was a culture shift. And on the internet, it became a lot more common for people to be openly hateful, not just to trans people. I mean, there's the whole TERF movement and rhetoric, and there's a lot of people who tear into non-binary identities and gatekeep what is and isn't a valid identity. I had a lot of supporters, I had a lot of love, but ultimately, that kind of scrutiny wasn't healthy for me, and I don't think it's healthy for anyone. No matter if somebody deserves to be picked apart, like, nobody is made to deal with a lot of eyes on them that usually don't have a lot of nice things to say. Honestly, I think that YouTube is not a great place for a lot of people to be. I don't think it's a good place to be trans. I don't think it's a good place to be queer. I don't think it's a good place to be really struggling with mental health. I mean, we see a lot of people on this platform struggle very openly with their mental health, and in a lot of ways, I'm sure that helps people, but it also gets exploited by the website itself, by people making videos about it. And some people profit off of, like, exploiting their own mental or physical health. And I just think it's a very weird environment, especially for somebody who's struggling like I was. Honestly, the best thing I ever did was log off and stop comparing myself to people, stop putting pictures of myself online, stop just logging out and focusing on me was what I needed in order to overcome what I was dealing with. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Transitioning on YouTube was originally the premise of my channel, and I do think I was a bit naive when I made my channel back in the day, but I ultimately had a really positive experience, and the reasons I left were a lot of external factors and not really entirely to do with YouTube. But I can only imagine what it's like to transition in front of millions of viewers, or maybe an audience that knew you as male and sees you transition, and the way that people do pick apart public figures, not that's me, but the way that people talk about trans people on the internet is very gross. And the way people talk about YouTubers is kind of gross. This website and a lot of social media in general tends to attract the most loud, the most controversial, and the most unreasonable people. And part of me felt like, if I don't continue to create, who am I going to feel represented by? And the truth is, I do see a lot of amazing trans creators on YouTube, and they're very inspiring to me, but I also see a lot of strange trans creators, and just strange creators in general, that monetize either debasing trans people, monetize debasing people. Like, the amount of trans YouTubers who dedicate their content to gatekeeping other trans people is very strange to me. I've watched a lot of trans creators for a very long time, and most of my favorites do not post anymore. There are obvious exceptions. I mean, everybody stands ContraPoints, but I don't like how a large percentage of the trans community online focuses their content entirely on picking apart other trans people, picking apart non-binary people. In general, I find it very strange. I hate to break it to everybody, but it doesn't make anyone look good. It doesn't make the people who discriminate against us like us more when they see us tear each other down. When I first left YouTube, it was in 2014. It was after I had started my channel and I had dropped out of college. I had been dealing with my transition. I had been sexually assaulted. I had been struggling. I had dropped out of school. I was a wreck. I returned around 2016 because I thought that I was in a place where I had put all that behind me, but I hadn't. And I think part of the problem was I was unwilling to admit to myself that I was depressed. I was unwilling to admit that I needed medication. On top of everything I had been struggling with, then we had to deal with living through a pandemic, and I, within my own bubble, was struggling. I can only imagine how everyone else felt. But I also had to witness personal relationships in my life crumble. I had to witness my family crumble. I had to witness my family members attempting suicide. And it was so bad that eventually I just shut down. I'm not the only person who felt like this, but I don't see a lot of people talking about how truly bad they felt. And every time I have seen a video of somebody talking about it, it really resonated with me, which is why this is the only thing I could think about talking about, because I can't pretend like I'm the same person I was, and I don't think anyone is. And there's so many reasons for that, but the first step is admitting it and processing it. And I wasn't able to fully process it. And taking time away to reflect, getting therapy, all of that was really important. Over the course of the pandemic, my depression got so bad that I wasn't leaving the house, and it wasn't just because of COVID. It's just truly, I don't think that I could have if I wanted to. And it really manifested in my eating disorder. I think that's a whole topic for another day, but I think most trans people can relate to body dysmorphia, and it got so bad. And you can't see outside yourself. You know, you can't get that outside perspective to know now is the time that you need to help yourself, and now is the time you need to address the elephant in the room. And for me, that was that I wasn't medicated. I wasn't dealing with my depression. I was telling myself, I need to exercise more, I need to eat better, I need to act more positive, and then I won't be depressed. But the truth is that if you're like me and your family has a history of depression, and let's face it, we all had a really rough year, take it seriously. Don't just think you can shake it off, because I don't feel like I'm back to normal, and that needs to be addressed, that needs to be processed. And I wish that I saw more people talking about it, because you only get a curated version of somebody's life on the internet, and I think it's part of the reason why social media is so toxic. I mean, let's face it, like we all know with Facebook and everything, it's not good for you. The constant comparisons, the constant like pushed content that forces outrage. There's a shocking amount of discrimination on the internet, and I'm not going to be the first person to say that. I'm not saying anything new here, but even within the trans community, there's transphobia, and within the LGBT community, there's literally a subset of people who want to drop the T, and I feel like my privilege has allowed me to just kind of slink into my own corner and ignore a lot of the issues that I see within the community, because it's nobody's responsibility to fix it, you know? But what do? Do you give up and just accept, oh, well, this is the way it is? I mean, I even have friends of mine that are transitioning and are just routinely mocked by their friends for it. Not that that's necessarily transphobia, but there is a sense that people take us not as seriously. And at some point I realized that I'm part of the problem if I don't say anything about it. I wanted to do my part to make the internet less shitty, and I don't know if I can do that, but if even one person can like resonate with that, that would mean a lot to me, because I can't tell you how bad my mental health has been. People have a tendency to neglect their mental health until it's too late, and that is something I did, and I want other people to feel like they're not alone, because my life is starting to get back to normal. I'm vaccinated, I'm going places again, and obviously, you know, we all know what happened in the world. I don't need to say, oh, 2020 was so hard. We all had a really rough time, and a lot of people don't allow themselves to be sad if they assume that other people have it worse than them. I've been guilty of putting my own feelings aside, thinking that I'm not deserving of feeling that way. But the truth is that suffering isn't a competition, and in the Suffering Olympics, nobody wins, because literally, there will always be someone in the world who has it worse than you. But that's not an excuse to neglect your mental health and neglect your world. And I just want anybody who sees this to know that it's okay to not be okay, and you're not alone.